Hey, we're here at TechEd 2012 in Europe. I'm here with Wally Mead, lead architect.
No,
CCM,
no, just senior program manager.
Senior program manager. What does a senior program manager do?
I do nothing, so I just do a lot of talking.
A lot of talking.
So I manage our MVPs for Configuration Manager. I develop our content for like the hands-on labs we have here and the hands-on labs on TechNet. I also do a lot of user groups with the MVPs or non-MVPs and presentations at the conferences, and manage TAP customers as well.
Yeah, because you have a lot of sessions this week, about 4?
4 breakouts and 2 hands-on labs.
And then next week you're traveling around Europe again for some extras.
Right? Visiting some MVP user groups next week in Europe, yes.
So, and now with SCCM 2012, it's been out now for about a couple of 4 months?
2 months.
2 months.
April 17th, I think it was.
April 17th. So how is it accepted by the people that work with it, the MVPs? You talk, obviously you talk a lot to MVPs.
Yeah.
What do they think about it?
Everybody's really excited about it. They just love the new features of the product. They love how it scales. They love the new admin console. They love the new capabilities of managing and simplifying their infrastructure. So we had a TAP program where we had 22 TAP customers. That in the TAP program we managed over 500,000 clients in the TAP program. So they had great responsiveness from it. And a lot of those guys were reducing their infrastructure, removing secondary sites, going to distribution points. So they love that reduced cost for them to manage their environment.
Yeah.
My MVPs were very excited about some of the features, like obviously the new admin console, getting rid of the MMC that nobody really cared for. They really love the role-based administration. So the ability
security scopes.
Security scopes and roles to be able to give you specifically what you need to do and allow me to do other things and you not seeing stuff that you don't need to see in your environment. And using that to reduce the number of sites, because most people had a primary site for servers, primary site for desktops, central sites. That was 3 site servers. Now they can do it all with 1 site server.
With 1 site server, but then I think from the design perspective, in SCCM 2007, you saw a lot of customers have a lot of structures, right? Really deep with maybe 4 or 5 primary sites.
Yeah, multiple different layers of the hierarchy. Yes.
And now the design is limited to only 3 layers.
Yep. 1 layer of primaries, so
1 layer of primaries. So, and this security scopes, for example, is that a solution to manage, for example, to manage different sites you already know within, for example, 1 country?
Yes.
I could imagine that you have to, well, fit them together, more or less.
Yeah, so you just basically create collections. So if you manage the servers and I manage the desktops, we create a collection for your servers, create a collection of my desktops, give you the full administrator role for your servers, give me full administrator role if I need to for my desktops, and even though we're in a single site, we never see each other's objects. So it looks like we have our own independent sites. So absolutely you can consolidate multiple primary sites into 1 now, provided you don't pass our scalability limits of 100,000 clients per site, which most people don't. And so you can very easily reduce the number of servers you have, so the hardware costs go down, your operating system licenses, configuration manager licenses, and SQL Server licenses.
Yeah, that saves you a lot of money, I think.
It saves significant money. And then adding with endpoint protection, so a lot of customers, they already have that in their license agreements through software assurance or whatever their agreement is, so they already have the licenses for it. So now when their licenses for their third-party antivirus software expires, they can save $40,000, $50,000, $100,000 a year just by using the built-in product.
Yeah. And I saw it's very easy to deploy.
Yes.
The antivirus.
Very ezy to deploy. You turn on a role, turn on the clients, and let us go from there. Yeah, really is easy.
Yeah. And then one other thing I'm interested in is the new way that SCCM handles distribution points. Now you can easily tell that a collection has a linked distribution point group. That is awesome.
Yeah.
It's just you just point to a collection, everything happens by itself.
Yep. So you associate a collection to your distribution point group. So you have your distribution point group of your DPs that you use for your servers. Anytime you then deploy software to your collection, it automatically knows what DPs to use. So it saves you or a junior admin from missing a DP, so that clients are having to pass boundaries that they shouldn't be or cross your WAN. Now you always get the correct set of DPs configured for your distribution. And it's intelligent. So if you have 5 DPs in there now, you add a 6th DP, it gets all the content you already put on those 5 DPs through the distribution point group distribution. So it makes it a whole lot easier on the administration and management of your distribution points.
You don't have to use the copy distribution point content wizard again.
Right, we don't even have that wizard anymore.
No.
Because it's all done automatically now. And the other thing with the DPs that people really like is the Pixie service point role that used to exist in 2007 is now added on with the distribution point. So it's not a separate site system role, it's a checkbox you enable.
But you still need WDS, I guess.
Yes, you still need a server-based operating system. So even though the DP has been consolidated to one now, instead of a server, a share, and a branch DP, it's now just a DP that works on workstations, the WDS function is required for Pixie or for multicasting.
But then, when I was installing my first DP, I was looking at the file structure. That has changed.
Yes.
Dramatically.
Yes.
So how do I find which file goes where? How can I do that? Because
you don't.
I don't.
You don't, and that's the good thing, because in 2007 it was very common where you would set up your DPs, you would have one of your help desk guys, would call from your end user saying, hey, I need to install this software or something. They would point them to the SMS PKG $share to the appropriate folder. They would go and install software there, and then your help desk guy would say, oops, wait a minute, that's the wrong, I need to tweak this file. You go tweak the file, it would corrupt your hashes, so now you get hash mismatch failures on distributing software. Now we move from that package share location to the content library where you're talking about, and we put individual files in individual folders, and we hide the file name so you can't tell what is the XML file for your application versus the MSI versus the exe. Clients know just by polling, they'll be able to find that through the content library system, but you as an admin, you don't know.
But then, doesn't that make it a little bit more difficult to manage those files, or is it just all done through the console? And
all done through the console, and all you care is that the console says my distribution point successfully received the content. And then you can turn on the content validation feature of DPs so that on a scheduled basis, the default is weekly, I believe, your DP will self-check itself. Is all the content for this application, this delivery, this package, correct? So has anybody corrupted anything? If so, it'll bubble that up in state saying, hey, my distribution point has invalid content. You just redistribute your content again. And it all happens magically behind the scenes for you.
And that it checks the hashes only, I guess?
Hashes and signatures.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the folder which is called FileLib and DataLib, and the third one?
I forget it off the top of my head. FileLib, DataLib, and some other lib.
Some other lib, let's call it that.
It's in the SCCM content library folder, yeah.
So is there a way that it's matched, or is it just random numbers that are used there? For the
to create those folders? I don't even know what they do in the background.
No, it's just created.
Yeah.
And has it something? And then when clients connect to it, the client obviously knows which file to collect, right? That's in the deployment, right? It's not called advertisement.
Correct. The advertisements change the deployments.
Deployments.
Yes. So, and the reason for that is just because there's commonality between all the features. You deploy a task sequence, you deploy an application, deploy a package, you deploy a baseline for configuration settings. So yeah, we do that. But client just says, hey, DP, I need this content, and the DP points it to all the appropriate files. There's a mapping on the content library on your source site server that maps all the files appropriately to where they are on the distribution point. So that we know internally how to point the client to those appropriate files. And a single instance store, which also is very cool. So if you have the same file, let's say a patch, a single binary is used by multiple different patches. In 2007, that single file is on the DP multiple times. 2012, it's there one time. So it reduces disk space and network traffic requirements.
Oh, and it's very nice that we can now choose which drive is being used.
Yes. So you don't have to use the no SMS on drive.sms file anymore, because you can designate your primary and secondary drive. Yes.
That was a really good enhancement, I guess. And then when you look at the DP itself, I was missing the server share DP. I now created a new site system, and then I just get the option to create a DP out of it. Is there a reason for that? We
just want to make it easier for people. Get rid of the complexity. Do I create a server? Do I create a server share? Do I do a branch DP? You just create a DP now, and we put it on the drive you tell us to when you configure that DP. So as part of that installation of your DP option, you tell us to install IIS, which is required. And then on the next page of the wizard, you tell us what drive you want to use and how much free disk space to leave. So we'll never fill up your drive unless you tell us to. But we'll fill it all up until we reach that minimum free space required. Then we'll move to your secondary drive for you. So we manage it all internally.
That saves a lot of work.
Yeah, the last thing on DPs that people really like is the scheduling and throttling. So now the site server...
It's a per DP kind of setting, right?
Right.
So in per the previous version, you had to create sites for that?
Yes. It was using senders for site-to-site replication. Now with distribution points, you configure that basically a sender on your DP, say, here's the times when the site server can push the content to me, and here's the amount of network traffic I want it to consume when it's doing that. So you have great controls on getting your content out to those remote distribution points.
So a lot of people now got a little bit amazed by the new features changes. For example, the SQL application that we even didn't discuss now. But what will happen in the next update, SP1? Well, first of all, when will we get it? When is it available, SP1?
We have a CTP, a Community Technology Preview, I think is the acronym for CTP, that's available today for SP1. So you can download that from Microsoft Download Center. And
is that something we need for Windows 8 deployments to be supported?
CTP or SP1 will be supporting Windows 8.
Okay.
So yes,
great.
so the main goal for SP1 is to support Windows 8 for all different client features, including operating system deployment. So to deploy Windows 8, you need to have Service Pack 1 and Configuration Manager 2012.
Which contains the new boot images as well, I guess.
The new, it's not Awake anymore. It's now the Assessment and Deployment Kit.
Okay.
So, and you have to pre-deploy the ADK, WinPE, and the deployment tools, or USMT. You pre-deploy those now. We're no longer supplying those like we did with Awake in 2012. Yeah. So you pre-deploy those, and then you can go ahead and just do a deployment of a Windows 8 image. You can capture it and deploy it just like you would Windows 7 today.
Okay.
So all feature areas of Windows 8 are supported: inventory, discovery, software distribution, patching, endpoint protection, metering, all the different feature areas. We'll also be supporting some Windows 8 things like the always on, always connected scenarios in Windows 8. So to be able to tell Configuration Manager, hey, back off, my computer's in a low battery state, so don't push software to me right now. Yeah. Oh, I'm not connected to the network, so don't go try and download content right now because I'm not on the network.
But that's a client thing.
Yes, that's a Windows 8 client thing. We'll take advantage of those with Configuration Manager. So we've modified our client to support those features of Windows 8.
So do we get a new version of the client extra next to the Windows 7 version of the client?
Oh, it'll just be one client that'll detect that. A single client that'll detect the features of Windows 8 when you're on that operating system and implement those features. And also has the ability of Windows 8 of doing metered network connections. Yeah. So a lot of people now have the 3G and 4G connections that you have to pay for. Yeah. So you can configure Configuration Manager SP1 to say, hey, I'm on a metered connection, don't push software to me. So only do it when I'm on a Wi-Fi connection or a LAN connection, not on a metered connection. So you'll be able to control that. We also support Windows to Go. So the ability of taking your desktop and putting it on a USB stick and taking it and plugging it into some other device and having it look like your desktop. So we'll support that for Windows 8. We'll support the Windows 8 application, Metro style application, now the tiled look. We'll support those. We'll support redirection to the Windows Store. So you can configure a deployment of an application that would be in our catalog, application catalog, that would actually point you to the Windows Store to get your content for that application.
Okay, because Windows 8 will obviously allow you to install your own applications, being an admin, but you always have the marketplace as well,
right.
Of course.
Correct. We'll have that. SP1 will also throw some hierarchy expansion options. So today, if you install a standalone primary site, you're stuck. You can't ever join a hierarchy. Nope. In Service Pack 1, you'll be able to take that primary site to standalone, install a brand new CAS, attach that standalone primary site to that CAS, and then add additional sites to it to expand your hierarchy.
So the set parent site button is back?
Not directly, but more towards that, yes.
Yeah.
But you can take a single standalone primary and add it to a CAS, but if you have two standalone primaries, you can't attach both of them to the same CAS. So there, what you would do in that scenario, maybe you're standalone and I'm another company, you acquire me. So now, but we all have our own standalone implementation. You stand up a CAS, join it to your hierarchy, to your primary site to make a hierarchy. Then we do a 2012 to 2012 migration from my primary site to your environment. So you get all my data replicated over there through migration as opposed to the current export-import process. Then I uninstall my standalone primary, reinstall as a primary site, joining your environment. So I get all my same data back. So allowing you some flexibility in expanding your hierarchy in 2012.
Oh, great. That makes things easy.
Yes.
Just like the migration wizard, by the way.
Yeah.
Which is
yeah,
awesome.
A lot of people right now are they're concerned about possibly having to have a second primary site in the future, so they're what we call future-proofing their hierarchies. So they're standing their primary site up and then putting a CAS in there even though they don't need it, just because they might need one in the future. Now you don't have to do that anymore.
You can always do it later on.
Correct, you can do it later on. Another thing we're adding in there, SQL replication you mentioned, giving you some controls over that. So scheduling when SQL replication happens. You're also able to enable compression for SQL Server. So when we do our SQL replication, we can compress the traffic to save you on the network bandwidth utilization. And we're also allowing you to, let's say your primary site, you have a lot of clients, you don't want to automatically forward your hardware inventory up to your CAS. So you can configure SQL distributed view so that your primary site will hold your hardware inventory data local, But when I'm at the CAS and I want to run a report that requires your data, I'll do SQL distributed view across the wire, grab your data when I need it, pull it up for my report, and I've got the data there just for the reporting, but I don't replicate it on a constant basis like we do today. So allow you to control what gets replicated, when it gets replicated, and how much of it gets replicated up.
And all done from the SCCM console?
Yep. Yes, all done from the console. So giving you much more controls over the SQL to SQL interaction that we have today.
Yeah.
So that's another really cool feature.
Now it's a little bit hidden, right?
Yes.
The SQL application
you have no control over it at all, other than, hey, I establish my links, and if something breaks, I can troubleshoot it. But now we have more controls over when things happen and how much happens. We also have monitoring in there, so when you want to schedule, you can look and see what is my current replication status to my CAS. So it'll show you your replication history, how often, when things happen, how much network traffic is consumed. So now you can use that to help configure your scheduling and throttling.
Yeah, because that I think is, for example, when SCCM is really good in managing the amount of bandwidth used over one links especially, it's always difficult to plan that, right? To make that design. Like how much do I allow? How much should I allow? And what kind of packages should I allow, right?
So you have controls today with the sender for the content. Now this will give you some of those same type of controls for the SQL replication.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Great.
So those are the big things that are coming in Service Pack 1. Windows 8 support, hierarchy expansion, the SQL Server controls. We're also adding support for Macintosh clients. So you can take a Macintosh operating system, Mac OS X, and make it a Configuration Manager client for inventory, for software distribution, patching, settings management.
So bring your own devices even gone further then?
Getting further along, and we'll have support for Linux and Unix server systems as well, for inventory and software distribution of them.
And what about the mobile devices? Because Windows 8 mobile comes up. I think I'm not sure about it, but I believe it's pretty much like the Windows 8 normal OS. So do we get an agent for Windows 8 mobile as well?
I wish I could give you an answer on that. We're still working. We know we're going to do management of Windows 8.
7.5, for example?
Windows 7 and Windows 7.5 for mobile. So
mobile.
Windows Phone 7 and 7.5 don't have management in them. But Windows 8 phone will have management stack in it. So it's just a matter of getting an agent for that.
And for example, iPhones, Androids, that's something, for example, in the Windows Intune suite, there's something that you can deploy iPhone apps.
Yes,
is that
be able to
something
manage iPhones and iPads.
Can we see that happening in SCCM in the future?
In the future, you could probably expect that to happen. We're always investigating to see where the market's going and what people need. And we're seeing a lot of requests for iPhone, iPad, Android, Windows Phone management. So we're looking to see what we can do and what type of time frame that we can do and provide agents for and support for, like we do the Windows Mobile 6.1, 6.5 and Nokia Bell systems today.
Because in nowadays there's this Windows 6.1, 6.5 support. So you can actually there's an agent for that as well. And but the problem maybe is that not a lot of users use this.
Oh, absolutely.
OS.
They're old stuff. So we want agents for the new stuff, and we're working towards that. We just haven't made any announcements yet on any time frame yet.
Okay.
Outside of what Windows Intune is able to do.
They well, I haven't tested that out yet, but I recognize it. It says, hey, Windows iOS support, iOS 5.
Yep.
So that's something that would be
I believe they demonstrated that in the keynote yesterday morning here, or maybe it was Tuesday morning. Keynote, I think they demonstrated that.
I didn't see that one. Hey, thank you very much again.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
I hope to see you again next year.
I plan on it.
Are you planning on coming back to? Well, I'm not sure where TechEd is next year.
I've not heard.
No, me neither.
I've not
Let's
heard
hope
where
it's
it is,
in Barcelona again, because Amsterdam is really too close to my home.
I prefer Amsterdam, however. So I prefer being here over Barcelona.
Uh-oh. Then we have
Luckily,
some
neither of us decide that where it is.
No.
We'll go where it is.
And we'll meet again.
Yes.
Hey, thank you very much.
You're welcome, Alex.
Hey, bye-bye.